I hate to tell you this, but stablecoins will not protect you from the hyperinflationary depression because 99% of all stablecoins are actually pegged to the US dollar. You know, many people think that President Trump will save the dollar's global dominance through the adoption and control of a new US dollar stablecoin. And therefore, the US dollar will regain the purchasing power that's been lost to inflation. But what if I told you that stablecoins are more acceptable to the public versus central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs? And they've been having a lot of trouble getting those adopted. So they need to accomplish and get us to volunteer using the new digital currency. They need the public to participate in this digital economy. But that would bypass central banks' control and hand control directly to private corporations. So what that really means is that, I hate to tell you this, but stablecoins will not protect you from the hyperinflationary depression because 99% of all stablecoins are actually pegged to the US dollar. And we're going to talk more about that. But the US dollar is being systematically and soon hyperinflated away. What should you do? Well, it's pretty simple. Become as independent and self-sufficient as possible and have that foundation of sound money, physical gold, physical silver in your possession to protect your purchasing power. Because frankly, as the U.S. allies are given reason to retaliate against the tariffs and the collapsing global markets, well, you have to stop and think, what could they do? How about buying fewer treasuries, showing declining support for the U.S. dollar, but kind of doing it quietly? And if global governments stop supporting the U.S. dollar, well, who will? We have to create a new market. Allow me to show you how that risk is spread from the few, the governments, to the many, the public, as this transition from one currency system into the next one unfolds. Now, the first risk that you need to know about is how those in power are positioning to create a new market for U.S. dollars and U.S. debt. The digital coin that they're talking about is called a stable coin, but you always have to be careful when something is named something because typically it means the opposite. And you and I, if we hear the term stable coin, you think, well, okay, its value is stable. But no, it's not. It's pegged or tied to the US dollar. And so in countries where their currency is collapsing faster, they're being inflated away faster. Well, all this really means is since the dollar isn't inflating away as quickly, it appears more stable. So you have to ask yourself, if they need to create this new market, where is the market big enough to reinforce or reintroduce or build out that new market for dollar dominance? Well, I don't know. How about these global bank deposits? Right now, most dollars are held by governments. But what if there was a way to bypass the governments and banks and give global public easy access to US dollars? They can escape their currency that's inflating away faster, but it's just out of the frying pan into the fire. So if it's not the government or the banks issuing and controlling the money like in CBDCs, who would be doing this? How about private corporations? And with new laws that have just been passed by legally requiring corporate stablecoin issuers to buy dollars and dollar-denominated instruments like treasuries and maintain those holdings, this could possibly engineer robust U.S. dollar demand. I don't know if it'll be enough to offset the decline in demand from governments, but certainly it would engineer U.S. dollar demand. Where the U.S. depended on governments to buy our debt, now corporations will have to buy our debt. I don't know. Are they more stable than governments? Could this give them more power to negotiate favorable regulation, legislation, and taxation? Can you see this transfer of power? Because it's happening right before our eyes. And with banking deregulation, supporting credit to the industry and liquidity to stablecoins, this could easily be a symbiotic relationship with banks using deposited stablecoins as collateral for loans in order to create more stablecoins. And voila! A new asset is born. And what are the limitations? Frankly, there aren't any. And with the rapid adoption that has occurred, particularly in those countries whose currencies experience high or hyperinflation, where the US dollar is viewed as a stable value, I mean, you've got to understand this is just relatively speaking. It may be possible to hide the truth a little bit longer. All in due time, just not necessarily mine. It's something that I've certainly learned over the years. But there could be time for a lot of wealth transfer because, as we've seen, this administration moves really, really quickly. And I got to ask you, do you really think that this time is different? Do you think there will be no unintended consequences? After all, it's a new tool that exploded after 2020's free money stimulus. What could go wrong? Recent history shows us the doom loop between bank runs and stablecoins. Do you think that can't happen again? Look at what happened in 2023 with the 3 regional bank failures, SVB, etc. Are you ready for this? Because clearly, central banks are definitely getting ready. And who knows more about what they're doing to the monetary system than they do? Because while it may be possible to postpone the US dollar's decline in use anyway in the global economy through the growth of US dollar stablecoins, the purchasing power value of anything that is pegged or valued and can only be converted into dollars, well, that's its true value. Just like my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note where I cannot even buy eggs. But this is even more important because spreading the global public use of the dollar and directly bypassing governments and central banks and regulated banks, it transfers all of the risks from those top 1% to the bottom 99%. And any wealth that's left in that bottom will transfer to the top in a hyperinflationary depression. I'm sorry, this is not good information to not know about, but you can get prepared if you are in the right place at the right time with the right asset, because it also gives the power of surveillance to corporations. And corporations, I mean, are you not inundated enough with ads when you go online for anything these days? And I got to ask this question. Do you really think that corporations would be better controlling you than governments? Maybe it's a toss-up. Either way, we have to come together in global community because we have to get sound money in the system again. And what is sound money? Sound money is simply money that governments and central banks cannot control. It is above them because this is universal money and has been for thousands of years. And, that's why these global central bankers are buying more gold than they ever have in history. And as you guys know, I always think you should do what the smartest guy in the room on any given topic is doing for themselves. So smart money buys gold. Smarter money goes into collectible gold, because desperate governments do desperate things, and there are more things afoot that could lead me to believe that we will at some point in here see an overt confiscation. And these are likely to be less likely to be confiscated. That's why personally I don't own any bullion, because they've done it 3 times in this country before. And guess what? History repeats itself, and I can see a setup to them doing it again. So please, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Share, 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 share. I definitely think that this is one of the most important videos that I've done in quite some time, because it's another Trojan horse. They need to get you in the surveillance economy. I say, no, get out. I'm not saying that you're not going to have to use whatever the currency is as a tool of barter, but I can always convert my gold to any other currency. That's not true with all these other currencies, over 4,800 currencies that no longer exist. Look, this is a Confederate bill, even in the U.S. I know that together we can make a positive difference. And I believe that if enough of us position out of this garbage into sound money, we got a shot at having a seat at the table and have sound money as part of a new monetary system. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.